Welcome to the Real Recovery Show. We are every Friday at noon. And wow, we have over 50 episodes. It's just been amazing. Just super, super grateful to PHLV Radio here in Las Vegas for giving us this opportunity. They believed in the vision and have so 100% supported this. And I'm immensely grateful for everything that Johan specifically has done to not just to help me to be able to do this, but I've grown so much in this process. I remember when I first started, I was, oh my God, I can't make a mistake. And he's just like, relax, people want to see you human. And then so, I don't know, maybe episode 2 or 3, I started to maybe lighten up a little bit and get to a place where I was starting to understand the wisdom in what he was saying. And today's topic really speaks to that for me. The topic of emotional sobriety. Growing up for me, I had a very strong aversion to the whole idea of feeling anything other than nothing or peace, and I actually didn't even know what peace felt like. And anyway, in my house, people would be angry or depressed, and there wasn't really much else besides that. Every once in a while, there would be laughter, but it would be awkward and nervous laughter because there was just so much alcoholism, so much dysfunction, so many people walking around with their skin on inside out, irritated easily and blowing up and shaming each other, etc. Anyway, that was my childhood. It's not everybody's childhood, right? But anybody who has suffered from alcohol or drug addiction has one thing in common. They have a very unhealthy relationship with their feelings, and they want to self-medicate. They don't want to feel their feelings. They don't want to be in their skin. They want to feel a certain way, and so they will drink or do drugs to have more of a good feeling, or they will drink or do drugs to avoid what they think is a bad feeling. And to walk around treating our feelings like that and to not see what they're for just becomes a more and more unhealthy and toxic situation. But so, even doing this show, learning to just go with it and surrender and more so and lighten up and be able to truly be in gratitude and humility. Because it's easy, right? If you have a show that you can end up believing that you're something you're not. And so it's very, very important in everything that I ever do that I recognize that, I'm here right here, and my job is to just speak the truth that I feel to be, and to be truly helpful and to not think about, myself in it. And so emotional sobriety has been a topic that has become more and more. So emotional sobriety, we could think, is feeling good all the time. Feeling positive, feeling peaceful all the time, like that person's emotionally sober, right? And so when you see somebody who maybe has something come up to heal, and maybe they come out a little sideways, you can easily go, well, that person's not emotionally sober. But to be emotionally sober is to learn how to live life on life's terms, to recognize that there will be stuff that's going to come up to heal, and to feel it, to be with it, to process it, to write about it, to talk to another person. If you're in a 12-step program, to do steps on it, to talk to your sponsor about it. And if you have a therapist, to make sure that to find out, what's eating your lunch and what's behind it, and praying if you're spiritually inclined in recovery, and if you're religious, to go to church and talk to somebody. It's like whatever it is, to find out as we go through this awakening process of our life, to learn how to live life on life's terms. And it's not perfect. It doesn't look perfect. It's not always perfect. I'm not happy all the time. anybody that gets close enough to me will know that, like, I'm real. And that's what this show is about. It's real talk, because if I had this idea that being sober, being emotionally sober or spiritually fit meant that I was always going to be happy, happy, happy all the time, well, and I've had this idea, I will go back to stuffing my feelings. I will go back to being who I think you need me to be for me to be accepted, or whatever. And there are many times that we can get tempted to avoid facing something in recovery because we think it's going to be too much, or we think with this amount of recovery at this age, we should be better than this, and to really understand the disease of alcoholism or addiction is to understand it's the programming, it's the thinking, and a lot of it has elements and levels of PTSD, really super light PTSD, or all the way to complex PTSD, where it's a foundational PTSD. And so, for me, as I understood and learned to understand more about why my feelings were there, that they were just little alarms that would go off and let me know that something was in my programming, that I'm running on some story. I'm telling myself maybe a scary story, or something's getting triggered that I have believed, that I taught myself, or somebody told me and I accepted from a long time ago, and something's triggering something. It'll take whatever calmness I would have otherwise be experiencing the situation in, it will take it and it will raise it to a level of importance, and it will give it a charge, and I will not be the spiritually walk on water version of myself. I will not, in fact, my most peaceful, my most spiritually fit, my most helpful is when I am sincerely surrendered to my higher power, to my intuition. I have let go of the results of everything. I am entrusting God, and I am seeking only to be truly helpful to somebody else. And in that moment, there's no me, furthermore me, and I feel that beautiful state of mind of just peace, true peace. But I'm not in that state of mind all the time. Sometimes I'll do a thing and something will get triggered and something comes up to heal. And I always say that if it's on its way up, it's on its way out. And so that's become part of my emotional sobriety, the recognition and the almost expectation that when I am wrong, that I will need to look at it and admit it to myself and maybe to another person, that I may need to do something about it, and that I will for sure need to find out what was eating my lunch, and to turn to another tool, or to turn the situation over to my higher power again. And so being emotionally sober, being in sobriety, being in recovery is being in my life and allowing myself to breathe, allowing myself to feel my feelings, allowing myself to be real. There's also, because, and I don't know if you're anything like me, but like I had very, very certain ideas about what I was supposed to look like, what I was supposed to sound like, how much money I was supposed to have, like what I was supposed to do with my life, etc. And I was constantly comparing myself to other people and to this ideal of perfectionism that I had, which was completely unrealistic. And because I would do that, I would have a lot of shame and a lot of envy, and that would really disrupt my peace. And so my ideas of who I think I'm supposed to be, all that perfectionism, all those attachments to being a certain way, that made it really difficult to be comfortable in my own skin and just let it be. And there's something that happens in recovery that's so beautiful, that's happened for me so much, is that these things that I thought Actually, do you guys remember when we were kids and they had this story called The Ugly Duckling? And, here's this bird, and it's like swimming through the water, and it comes up and it's hanging out with all these ducks, and nobody wants to play with it because it's so different. And it feels shame because it doesn't understand why it's not fitting in. And a couple of the ducks, are telling them, like, maybe if you feel like maybe you don't belong with us or something like that. And the duck goes and swims along and crying and feeling all shameful and different and not enough and too much. And I'm adding all my own stuff to this. And then finds a whole bunch of other birds gliding across the water, and they're swans. And this one swan comes up to this duck, right, and looks right next to it in the water and sees a reflection and says, "Oh, why are you crying?" And the duck says, "Because I'm an ugly duckling." And then the swan says, "No, you're not. You're a swan." And then the duck looks back in the water and sees that it looks identical to the swan that's sitting next to it in the water, and that's swimming next to it. And that little childhood tale, to me, is, I feel like, what happens in emotional sobriety. Like, we go from feeling like we don't fit in, we're feeling so disconnected, so like toxically different, and we can't appreciate ourselves. We can't allow ourselves to beat to our own drum and really feel a sense of like peace in it. And if we are, our acting out, our drinking, our doing drugs is giving us the courage to like be our own person, right? But to really not need alcohol and drugs, and not the party atmosphere, and not being the person that goes against everything, but to be able to join, to be able to be with people, to be able to be comfortable in our own skin, is to shift from that mental mind space of believing that we are terminally unique and that there's something wrong with us, that we are the ugly ducklings, right? And to see that we are the swans, and that we are beautiful in our own right. And like, some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life are people who have had to recover from grave levels of addiction and illness and PTSD. And the light that comes through when we're authentic and we're honest with ourselves in really like saying, you know what, I'm not better than, I'm not less than. There are just things about me that might be different in how I express, but ultimately we are all the same. And it's a very inclusive thought process that allows for people to feel their feelings and to have their own experiences, and to make mistakes, and to do things that other people may not agree with. They don't have to, because we're in an environment where everybody is trying to find who they are and wanting to support each other and finding their highest good, right, to different levels. And so, emotional sobriety in the beginning did not have that kind of definition for me. Emotional sobriety, when I was new to recovery, was about how to control my feelings. It's almost kind of funny because we have this thing where we, if we're in recovery and we're new, we want to know, like, okay, I'm not sure I want to stop drinking or doing drugs. Can you just teach me how to do that without having all the roller coaster and the bad consequences? If I could just somehow drink like a lady, then my life would be good. Like that would be that sweet spot. And for me, I had that, of course, but I also had the idea that if I could just not have any big emotions, like that would be great, because I always felt like that was emotional sobriety, and I was so wrong. They say that the mind that has to control their drinking can't enjoy their drinking, and the mind that enjoys the drinking can't control it. Well, the mind that has to control their thinking, their feelings, can't have peace, because we're coming from a sense of like, I need to be other than I am. I need to feel something other than I do. And that going and resisting what's really happening creates such an inner conflict that there is no peace. It's paradoxical that only in that infinite patience do we get that immediate result. Only in the surrender do we get the feeling like it's okay, that it's that we don't have to fight harder, that we have to let go, and but let go, not give up, let go to the solution. And so like over the years, there's been things that someone like me, with the programming I had to learn to think differently, or I wasn't going to make it. I had physical illness from the amount of resistance to feeling feelings and living life on life's terms. And I had toxic shame and a terrifying fear of being abandoned. And I really felt like I really didn't want to show anybody my stuff and ask for help. And I judged people when they were not okay, and I judged myself, and I imprisoned myself with that. And so today we're going to talk more and more about that. And so I say we because it's not just me, even though I've been talking for 17 minutes. But we're joined here with Tay, who hasn't been on a show in a second. So welcome back, Tay.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Because Tay and I have had, conversations about this and about, what, being focused on the solution and what that really looks like, and, feeling feelings, and having had, for both of us, we've both had lives riddled with suicidal ideations. It's been much akin to taking a tractor trailer that's going 90 miles per hour down one highway and going, oops, we have to go completely in the opposite direction and change all of my thinking, because the way I'm thinking is making me suicidal. And the way I'm resisting feeling feelings and I'm not using healthier tools is going to keep bringing me to that brink. And so I've had to do a lot. We both had to do a lot of healing from suicidal obsession and negative thinking. And how do you do that? Because I'll say this last thing. A lot of times when people are suicidal, it's because they're so resistant to feeling feelings on a regular basis that they'll stuff them and try to be better than they are, being positive, air quote, and it builds up, and the mind goes, but that's not the truth, until something happens, some little straw that breaks the camel's back, something that maybe seems insignificant to other people, and then people like us who would stuff our feelings and try to be perfect and on and good and positive completely crumble and just want to die. Because there's that underneath the surface, and that has been something that a lot of people in recovery have struggled with the idea of, how can I be emotionally sober and also have, these challenges, And so for me, I really truly believe that we need to define what emotional sobriety is, what it really looks like, and of course, I'm 24 years sober. I am not an authority on anything. I keep learning on a daily basis, which to me is part of my emotional sobriety, is to recognize that, like, class is always in session. I'm always going to learn. So I'm not speaking as an authority on all emotional sobriety, etc. If you have a definition or something that you feel works for you and resonates for you, and it goes against what I'm saying, then take what you like and leave the rest. But for me, somebody who wasn't willing to feel my feelings and who judged it and needed to be perfect and never show my butt, emotional sobriety needed to get defined.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it was just another thing that I was going to tell myself I'm not enough with, and I'm going to feel that much more shame when I feel a feeling.
Right.
Or when something comes out sideways, and I was going to feel bad about feeling bad. It wasn't going to help anything unless I had some sort of like general playing field that I could say, am I in this?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be on the beam? What does it mean to be in this?
Mm-hmm.
And so emotional sobriety to me is, even if there's something coming up to heal, bringing it to the solution.
Right.
Like saying, I feel this way. This is what's going on for me. I want to find out what's really going on. I need another way of seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional sobriety for me is not being positive all the time. It's being real. It's checking in. It's recognizing that I'm going to have different feelings and different days. And some days I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. And some days I will be like, wow, like I feel so disconnected, Emotional sobriety for me is when something comes out sideways, to immediately to look at it and to say what's going on here, and to find out the cause and condition of it and deal with it. Less and less things come out sideways that way, and I do end up having longer and longer stretches of peace. Emotional sobriety for me is also not destroying an entire day because of a bad moment.
Right.
I kind of cringe a little bit whenever I hear someone say, I'm having a bad day, and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you're deciding that your entire day is going to be bad.
Right.
Emotional sobriety to me is being honest, as honest as I can in the moment, and to be willing to be as honest as I can, because everybody lives in some aspect of self-denial, and it's a process of awakening to the truth, right? And emotional sobriety is being attracted to healthier behaviors and people who are exhibiting healthy behaviors, not being attracted to the gossip and judgmentalism and separatism and shaming stuff or anything that's unhealthy. And I feel like I become more and more emotionally sober as I have gone through my path, but I could say I'm in emotional sobriety, that I'm just in a different place in it sometimes based on what's coming up to heal or what's going on. Emotional sobriety is also recognizing that there are things that might make it more difficult for me to be more stable. Yeah. If I haven't gotten enough sleep, if I haven't eaten the way I'm supposed to be eating, if I haven't maybe moved my body and gotten exercise, if I'm not meditating or praying or going to some sort of recovery event or working with somebody, right? These are things that keep me much more infused. Emotional sobriety is wanting these things,
yeah,
and wanting to be in recovery and focused on recovery. But emotional sobriety doesn't say how many and how many events I go to. Emotional sobriety doesn't say how many people I work with. Emotional sobriety doesn't say how I pray or how I meditate. Emotional sobriety doesn't say how much are you feeling a feeling today.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional sobriety doesn't say that. It's more of an ability to say, like I'd rather be awake and I'd rather be focused on the solution. And so I will take whatever's going on, I will admit what's going on, and then I will say, okay, what's really going on, and talk to another person about it. Yeah. And there's so much room in it, but it's the last thing I'll say is it's not where you're at, it's what direction you're facing and what you're willing to do. Mm-hmm. If I have something to come up to heal and I just want to crawl into bed and just feel sorry for myself, I'm not feeding my emotional sobriety. Right. I'm not activating my recovery. I'm not doing that. And I'm not a bad girl. I'm not going to get chastised for it. But I will not experience peace, and I will not experience, the freedom that comes from being willing to not judge it, but look at it and process it and face it and let go of one more rock, one more obstacle that keeps me from knowing how free I could really be. And so, yeah, I said a lot.
You did say a lot.
It's kind of interesting because, like, we didn't really prepare for this. We just were talking about, emotional sobriety and honesty and focusing on the solution and
Right.
how an important topic it is in general. And that, it's really easy to, like, to say, oh, well, who's emotionally sober?
Right.
It's like, well, if you have this idea that somebody's supposed to be perfect all the time, well, good luck finding anybody
who's that way, right?
Anybody.
Yeah. Like you said a lot. There's a connection that I saw in this. And, I think about that, first getting sober moment, and that, like, coming and talking to people and wanting them to teach you how to drink like a lady. Not that you ever did anything like a lady, but all of a sudden you think you can do this thing like a lady, right? I always talk about how, like, I wanted to be able to have one, which I've never had one of anything, whether it be alcohol, drugs, Dr. Pepper, exercise. I'm always the extreme. Like, I'm always the, like, too far for the norm. And so thinking about, like, when I first started going to therapy, which, if you've seen many episodes, I actually came to recovery through therapy. And so I came in wanting to be happy. And I had this idea of what happy meant. And it was the most unrealistic, extreme version of happy that you've ever heard of. Because I did not have this, like, this balance in life. And, like, I had one therapist over the years that would always talk about, let's get you in balance. And I'd be like, in balance?
Boring.
This isn't like the courtroom. Like, I'm not like, the arms of justice. Like, right. I don't need to be in balance.
Right.
And I feel like that's what emotional sobriety leads to, is this, like, a sound balance of, like, life is going to be lifey. We have to live it on life's terms. But we have to do it in a way of grace, and we have to do it in a way of, like, still loving people well. And how do you love people well? Well, you love them well through acts of service. You love them well through honesty. You love them well through doing the next right thing in your own life so that you can be there to show up for them. And so, like, overextending yourself, serving too much, like, all these different things that, like, look good on paper aren't going to serve you well, so it's not going to serve anybody else well either.
And I think of, like, progress, not perfection, that, it's okay to have, like, healthy ideals of who we think we need to be behaving like with other people, and that when we feel like we fall short of that, to realize more work needs to get done in that area. Like, if I lose my peace and I get angry, I don't want to get angry at a person. I don't want the tension in my body. I don't want it to drain me. And that's not how I want to behave with people. And so because of that, I will see that. But instead of, like, judging myself as, oh my God, I can't believe that I got angry, I will go, what was I telling myself? What's going on that's triggering me? Why am I feeling like this person has my power? Because nobody ultimately does. And to heal it, right? And that's been a big transformation for me, because I've had major anger issues in my life.
Yeah.
I've had, I grew up in a raging house.
Yeah.
It was a violent house. We had holes punched in walls. My door hung off its hinges to my bedroom, and I believed I wasn't going to live through my childhood. And because I felt like I was going to be either neglected too much or beaten too hard, or I was going to kill myself because I was so miserable. And I wanted to die when I was 12, like, officially. Thought about it before, but whatever. And so man, like when something would hit something and I would get afraid, overwhelmed or whatever, like Hulk mad, like I would like lose my ever loving, you know what, and just be like, you know, and like the muscles, the stress and everything, and by the way, you know, this isn't like I get sober off alcohol and drugs and food addiction and everything and I'm good, and like, oh, Lisa was just this way when she drank or did drugs. No, I drank and did drugs and ate food to self-medicate and manage my emotionality so that I somehow could stop myself from becoming too depressed or too angry. Like, I promise you, I was like my own pharmacist because I was scared of myself. I was so uncomfortable and I was scared of myself. So it's over time, it's transitioned to being finally having self-love and compassion and understanding that all rage is terror, all anger is fear. And it ultimately is a lack of full faith in my higher power, and some story I'm running on that makes me pull back, take responsibility for my own whatever, and say, okay, what's eating my lunch? What's going on with me? And looking at my own paper, not trying to control and try to change what the other person's doing.
Right, and oh, you said a lot again. But the thing I wanted to say was, you know, I feel like all of us were our own pharmacists because we were trying to not feel the feeling that whatever the thing was that was eating our lunch was making us feel. And, you know, you talked a lot about suicidality and like how we both had those suicidal ideations most of our lives, and how, you know, in therapy circles, it's referred to as a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right.
And, you know, that's
in recovery, they say that too.
Yeah, well, in most circles, they say that nowadays. It's true. But you know, what I was going to say with that was, you know, like that's that what is that core thing that is eating my lunch? What is that core thing that makes me want to die today?
Yeah.
What is that core thing that makes me want to drink today? What is that core thing that makes me feel like I look in the mirror and nothing fits me? Like, what is the core thing that makes me feel like I'm the ugliest person on the planet? Or like I need to do 4 more miles because I'm just not good enough? Or, you know, like what is that thing?
Yeah.
And you know, getting to that root is where the solution lies. And for me, talking about being in solution is hard because my natural bend is dramatizing everything and making everything and making everything dramatic and travesty.
We've had it because I've known Tay for years, and so oftentimes like people will like join with people that are like the perfect triggers for each other's stuff, and so here I am, this like alpha, right, and like she wants to have it perfect, and she blah blah blah, blah. And so like,
but I also want you to fix me.
Right, and she wants me to fix her, and so we've gone through a lot. So and so like, you know, for me, like, I want peace. I want I feel like I just channeled my dad. I want peace, you know. But I want peace. I want calm. I want simple. I say I want these things, and then she'll like come up with a whole story and like assume a couple of things and dramatize it, and I'm like, I would like be triggered, and now I'm not feeling peace, you know, because I'm like, wow, this is a lot, you know. And like we've had to like look at, like, go to our own corners and look at our own stuff and find out, you know, over and over and over again, chipping away at, you know, what it is that like we feed off of each other in that way. And it's been helpful because it's been good for me to have this like this trigger that says, not healed yet, nope, not healed yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to look at this. And for her, like a mirror going, oh my God, look at the effect I'm having.
Yeah.
You know? And
I think I'm just processing.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening is I'm dumping.
Yes.
And I didn't know that there was I'm like,
Right.
I'm just because I'm not someone, like, I know you guys don't know this, but I'm not someone with a lot of words. Like, I'm just not. Like, but when I start telling a story, when I start telling a story, they just kind of like spewing out with like lots of syllables.
Right,
and,
you're like quiet for a while and like wait for it, and it's like, yes. It's like,
yeah.
Especially when she's around her cats. Yeah. She'll have a whole like soap opera going on around them.
So does the dog.
Yeah.
Let's be real here. That's a whole household situation. It's not just the cats.
So this is a really good point though, because you know, a big part of recovery around this type of stuff and emotional sobriety is focusing on the solution. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm a firm believer that a problem shared is a problem halved. And if we go to a meeting or any kind of, if you're in 12-step recovery, or you go to like a therapist, or you go to like any type of like group event or anything, or church or anything, any kind of gathering where you can like honestly share, if you're needing in those environments or like working one-on-one with a therapist or a sponsor, if you're in 12-step recovery or whatever, if we're going to all of those situations and we're not being real and sharing where we're really at, then we're still stuffing our feelings and pretending we're something that we're not, somewhere we're not, and people will say, how you doing?
Fine.
And then you'll say, fine, you know, and of course, you know, the acronym for fine is fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, but
yes.
No, I'm good.
No, I'm doing well today.
I'm doing well today. I'm good.
As I'm vibrating.
As like you can tell, like everything in my body is saying, no, I am not doing. I'm doing so good.
As I'm pouring down tears.
Why do you ask? Why do you ask? You know, and so, yeah, I think that's what's so important. I think that being focused on a solution is not being like fake and affirmations and I'm just going to be positive. Now, it is necessary to have, you know, good new thoughts and new ideas and program like ideas of, you know, stuff that maybe we read in meditation books or hear in an event or something. But we do need that because we need new thinking. We need new ideas that are more solution-oriented, recovery-based ideas, right? But we also need to take what we are already thinking, what we're already feeling, and bring it to the light and say, this is what's going on, you know. And this breaks the stigma of that in these events too. It allows other people permission to freaking stop trying to be perfect all the time.
Right.
And be real. Like I go to some of these groups, and it's crazy how on and how much people want to top each other sometimes.
Right.
And you're spiritual, I'm spiritual. You're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know, and that when somebody goes and they share something real, you know, it doesn't have to be where they're like focused on the problem.
Right.
Focusing on the problem is basically giving the narrative where there's no solution and no God. Like, this sucks. My job sucks. I hate my life. This sucks. I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah.
You know,
this doesn't work.
This doesn't work. You know, God's a joke.
Fake.
And, you know, or, you know, like this always happens to me. And, you know, it's my wife, it's my husband, it's my kids, it's my job, it's my this, it's my that. And like blaming everything for my lack of peace, that's focused on the problem. Focusing on the solution is saying, I'm having trouble at my job right now. I got into it with my boss a little bit, and I'm really trying to practice these principles. I'm trying to find out what's going on with me. Honestly, I'm a little scared of losing my job because of the fact that I don't feel like I've been pulling the numbers, and you know, I might need to look for another job. And so that's what I'm walking through right now. But you know what? I'm glad to be here. I know that there is a solution, and if anybody has any insight, you know, see me after, or I would love to hear about it, because I want to heal this, you
Yeah.
know? And that, so you see, it still mentions it. It still talks about what's going on, but it starts to take the power off of it a little bit and give it to recovery, give it to the solution, trust that, you know, there's so many people in recovery who have overcome whatever it is you think is so unsurmountable that
Yeah.
eventually, if enough people are talking about walking through divorce, walking through a loss of a job, you know, etc., if enough people are bringing the problem to the solution and walking through it and staying sober, that it gives people the impetus to do the same. And so that's what this show's about too. You know, we want to have real conversations. We don't want to just be like, oh, look how spiritual we are. You know, like I want to admit to the level of whatever that, hey, I have times when I have stuff coming up to heal and I need to like look at something, and yet I feel also at the same time that I have way more peace, way more stability, way more health than I've ever had mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, because I've learned to bring the mess to the message, to bring the darkness to the light, to bring the problem to the solution, to be willing to say how I feel, but put a question mark at the end of it and say, maybe there's something I'm running on that could use a little bit of a new way of looking.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, and that's also a hard one for me, because like we've talked about before, you know, I work in the mental health field. In a way, I mean, and so in a way, I mean, 'cause I actually work for a law firm, but like
she writes medical necessity,
behavioral health, medical necessity reviews.
Yeah.
So and as a therapist, you know, and so like telling people that I've been searching for a therapist for 6 months to deal with something huge that I'm dealing with, and with 16 years
took
sober,
a lot of humility and courage.
But it's like a. Like, yeah. Don't you know don't you know who I think I am? Like,
right.
Like, don't you know that I have a degree on my wall too?
Right.
That I have all the same tools they have. I've read all the same books. Like, what are they going to give me that I can't give myself?
Right.
Well, they can see it from a different perspective, you know, like they, and so like, and I mean, it's been a journey. Let's not even get into that. It's a whole different episode. But that idea of like, I have an issue that is destroying something in my life and I need it fixed, and having to come to a level of emotional sobriety where I can admit that this issue is destroying something important in my life and that it needs to be fixed. And so that's another piece that like
more gets revealed.
That stupid onion that we have to peel.
Well, honestly, this is how I feel about it, and I just recently spoke about it on an episode with Chris Terrian as well, is that we end up having experiences, sometimes even relapses, because there's something that we're now ready in our life to face. It's time to face, and it wasn't something we could have faced before. You know, that we heal as much as we can as we go, and as we heal, our lives become clearer and better, and things that were like hidden and not able to be faced, we start having the faith and the courage and the ability to now face it, that we couldn't do it all at once. And so sometimes well into recovery, there are things that come up that are, you know, we get into a new relationship or a new job position or a new situation, maybe with our health or something, and now this stuff's come up for us, and it wasn't really that big a deal in the forefront of our mind before, you know, and now it's up. And it's so easy for the spiritual ego to say, don't you know who I think I am? I have a degree, or this amount of time sober, or blah, 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 right? But to really understand the nature of healing is that, you know, we can't heal all of it at once. We can't even see all of it at once. You're
blind to so much stuff until your eyes are open.
And that's why,
it's crazy.
That's why I feel like, you know, for you and I all these years, you know, our friendship, working together, everything, you know, we've supported each other and had each other's back in things, and we've also triggered the F out of each other.
Right.
Because, like when you were losing your house and you moved in, right? I really, really wanted you to move in. And I also was like, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Because there was new stuff, somebody living in my house who doesn't do things the way I want them to, can all...
Who doesn't do them the right way?
No, who doesn't... You don't want me to get into that. Yeah. But, who doesn't do things the way, you want things to be clean, Mm-hmm. And so... It makes you look at stuff. It makes you look at yourself. It makes you look at your patience level. It makes you look at your tolerance. It makes you look at codependency. It makes you look at your rules for happiness.
But it also makes the other person see, oh, this is the way other people live. Is this something that I want in my life? Is this a way for me to grow? Is this a way for me to change? Or is this more than I can handle?
And how maybe, we were living a different way before and we didn't realize that how that was affecting our mental health.
Right.
Or to live like
physical
that.
Health. Or,
sure.
We didn't, like there's a lot of things that I feel like I've learned.
We've grown so much.
Yeah.
But that's my point. So emotional sobriety we don't need to focus on the moments when peace was lost. We take a step back and we focus on, are we healing? Are we owning our stuff?
Are we in the solution?
Are we in the solution?
Yeah.
Do we get up and do we make amends? Do we look at the stuff? Do we say, okay, I'm going to go sort out my stuff. You go sort out your stuff, and let's come back together let's have a solution. Let's get centered. And so that's really, to me, the emotional sobriety,
right.
is being focused on the solution, and also honesty. To thine own self be true, being authentic. I was not capable of emotional sobriety when I was trying to be something I wasn't, to avoid losing people that didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
And to avoid not getting all the things that I thought I needed to control my life and control myself to get. And I was running on stories all the time, stories. And when you believe everything that your head says,
mm-hmm.
and then you go and you go into this life and you try to be everything you think you're supposed to be, I promise you're not going to be emotionally sober. There's no way for you to be emotionally sober, because you're literally, by very definition, running on self, running on a story. It's not even the reality. And so why is it so important that in emotional sobriety we have honesty as our core value? It's because to be honest is to question all the stories we tell ourselves and see what resonates. To be honest is to recognize we can't be that person that we are trying to be all the time and control the results of everything. To be honest with ourselves is to admit when we have a problem and to want to do something about it,
right.
rather than stuffing our feelings and avoiding facing it. Emotional sobriety is based on honesty. And so if we're going to be dishonest with ourselves and with other people, we're going to have a lot of drama.
Right.
People aren't going to be trusting us, but we're not going to be able to trust ourselves, and we're certainly not going to be able to trust God, because our connection with God, our awareness, our intuitive inner knowing is a channel of honesty. And if anything dishonest is in there, we will be disconnected from God, we will be disconnected from other people, we'll be disconnected from our true self, and in that state of mind is the opposite of emotional sobriety.
Right.
It's anywhere but here, anytime but now, anybody but you, anybody but me. Who do I need to be? What do I need to do? I'm ready.
Yeah.
Bring it on. And war.
Right.
It's not emotional sobriety. Emotional sobriety wants peace.
Yeah.
It values peace. Emotional sobriety values serenity. That I am not going to attach my serenity to any person, place, or thing being a certain way for me to be okay. Emotional sobriety says I value my sobriety first.
Mm-hmm.
That if something seems to threaten it, they go, not my sobriety.
Right. Well, and I mean that honest piece. I feel like for, I would say, the majority of people in long-term recovery, we lied in our addiction. I mean, like even if it was just to ourselves saying that our behavior was okay,
right? Or that nobody knows,
that nobody noticed, that
nobody's getting hurt,
nobody else is getting hurt.
Right.
This is just to myself.
It's not that big deal.
It's not
everybody does it.
Yeah, that was all stuff that we said in our sobriety.
Right.
But we also manipulated our addiction. We also manipulated. We also manipulated to get what we wanted, to get who we wanted, to get how we wanted, to do what we wanted. Like there was another level to that. So getting sober or getting clean or stopping using or going to therapy, you're at a disadvantage because you're used to lying. Yeah. And I'm someone that I learned very young that it was much better to tell you the story you wanted to hear than to tell you the truth. And it was very hard, and sometimes still is hard, for me not to tell you what I think you want to hear. Like, it just is. And I actually sometimes will sit there and say, is what I'm about to say the truth?
Which is so new and so powerful and so good that I feel like that's now part of your emotional sobriety repertoire.
Right, but I literally sit there to myself and say, is this the truth? Am I embellishing? Am I manipulating?
That's so beautiful.
You know, like, am I like, is there any part of this that I need to look at before it comes out of my mouth? Because sometimes the things that come out of my mouth, I look at it and I'm like, who just said that? Because that wasn't me. Because that's not what happened. Like I just, and so
Tay, I don't lie in general. I don't, right? And I used to, right? But every once in a while, something will come out of my mouth that is not 100% the truth.
Right.
It is a little bit of an exaggeration, or I said it a certain way, and then I'll go, what? Why did I say that?
Yeah.
Why did I say that just now? Why did I say it that way?
Right.
Like, that's just odd. And I'll go, so I don't know why I said it that way. I don't know why it came out that way, but maybe I felt a little, I felt like defensive or something, but usually, and that's what just happened. Like, kidding. That wasn't the truth.
Well, and that's the big piece, is the defensiveness. Like, because we're so used to being attacked. Like, people with PTSD...
Or perceiving attack.
Well, and people with PTSD have so much trauma-based thinking that, that...
Everything's a defense.
Everything is an attack, so everything is a defense. Because everyone is out to get you.
Right. And that whole mentality, there's no peace.
And so how do you go and find people to help you if you believe everybody's out to get you? If you believe that nobody's going to believe you anyway, so you might as well tell them what they want to hear. Like how do you get past these things to become emotionally sober? And so that's that peeling of that onion. It
takes time to realize, there are people that you can trust. It takes time to realize that you have an intuition that will tell you who you could trust and with what, and that we don't have to act out on these behaviors to have emotional security, that actually we need to learn to develop an underdeveloped skill of relying on our true intuition, and so it looks like, somebody who has trauma is screwed.
Right.
I've had complex PTSD, and I've had so much PTSD, not just from my childhood, but all the stuff that happened in my early 20s, and which wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the thinking, whatever. But I just, there has to be a solution. No matter what, I will say this. One of the things that's been a working mantra for forever for me, and I feel is one of the key reasons why I've healed so much of the things that I've healed and why I keep healing, is that no matter what, there has to be a solution.
Yeah.
I have that attitude, there has to be an answer. There has to be.
Because you have a God of your own understanding. And I feel like your intuition is the reason why you can get to that place. If you're questioning God, that place doesn't exist.
But we question God.
I mean, if you're questioning the existence, if you're questioning
but most people, if they're already underway and in recovery and wanting to have more of a broader experience of emotional sobriety, have some element of a higher power already that they have come to formulate in their own mind, or already have that concept. I think that doubting and questioning is also part of emotional sobriety.
Yeah.
I feel like it's healthy to ask questions and to say where I feel doubt. I feel like though the attitude of there has to be a solution rather than I'm fucked.
Right.
I have to say that all the times that I wanted to kill myself, all the times that I told myself I should just kill myself, I have to say that the thinking was I'm fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever it was, in that moment, I doubted that God could do this too.
Right.
I doubted that there could be a miracle for me in this. You know, whatever it is. And I think I just had an aha because I have a really close friend of mine that has been dealing with some suicidal stuff. And I feel like the narrative that he's telling himself is I'm fucked, you know, even though he's not necessarily somebody who curses, but like something like that, right? Because in a narrative without God, without solution, without hope, I have just the problem.
Right.
Right?
Well, and I mean, because when I moved in with you, I was in long-term recovery already. You know, like it wasn't that long ago. And I had been a Christian a long time. I'd been sober a long time. And I had come to this point of like, what I believe of God is it true? You know, I was finishing my degree. COVID had just ended. Like, so I was in this new place of like, what I believe of God true? Like,
your
is this
sexuality,
true? Yeah, like,
who you loved,
like, yeah,
you know,
like
being in love with a woman at the time and everything. I mean, these things make you question your concept.
Because I had this concept of this box. And so like, even I had to like change my concept of this box and figure out what I really believed of God before I could get to a place where I could trust God again to know, okay, I'm not actually effed, because I don't say the F word either.
I say it plenty for both of us. Don't you worry.
I'm not actually in that place, you know, like I'm actually in a place where God can help me get through this. And I feel like for all people that are on a walk with God, there is a point where you start to question, is this true? What is true? How do I seek it well?
It's important. It's important because as we go through recovery, our concepts of ourself have to be questioned and reevaluated, and our concepts of a higher power and what we're trying to do and what life is really for. When we first get into recovery, we just want to be able to live, you know, and there's so much more, and then it just becomes a deeper experience if we're really willing to seek true emotional sobriety. There are people who will stop on the level of relief in recovery and just kind of cope. You know, at least I'm not drinking, you know, but I don't know. Everybody is going to do what they're ready to do for their spiritual process. And but emotional sobriety doesn't compare.
Right.
It doesn't say that. I mean, you can see when someone's not working their program from a perspective of their attitude is just shit.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't do anything.
Right.
They don't go to the events. They don't really work on themselves. But when somebody is emotionally sober, it could mean that, you know, they're really just in humility and they're saying, this is what I'm walking through right now, and I'm okay. I may not be super happy,
Right,
but I'm okay. And so if you're new or you've been around recovery for a while and you feel that you want for yourself to know whether or not you're doing the right thing and whether or not you're doing it well, I mean, if you're feeling uncomfortable in your own skin at times because something's coming up to heal, you know, there are a lot of tools. There are books, there are meditation books, there's you know, therapy, etc. that we could do, but also, you know, avail yourself of things that you can do to help yourself heal. But my recommendation is something that, you know, I would have really loved to get this message years ago is, you know, let yourself be human. Let yourself be somebody who's healing. Let yourself be, like they say that saying, we're not bad people trying to be good. You know, we're sick people trying to get well, and we're souls having this human experience, and we're growing up. We're learning things we didn't get to learn before. It becomes exciting, and it becomes a new life, a new path, a new way to be able to do things and experience things that we never could before. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was actually really, really fun. You know, there's nothing I would rather do in my day than spend an hour with you.
Aw,
So
thank you.
yeah.
That's when she's emotionally sober. And please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, on Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on the PHLV radio app, or you can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We have our own YouTube channel now, and so we've been putting all of our videos up on there. So just look for The Real Recovery Show. And then you can go to themeetingspace.com, and click on The Real Recovery Show there. If you're interested in being on a show, please contact us through there. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And we'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio here in Las Vegas. We love you. See you next week. The Meeting Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal.